welcome you all once again to our Saturday Satsang. It's our joy to be here. Haridas and I are thrilled to be back in India, where our soul is and has been for the last 2 years. This is a reading from the Bhagavad Gita. He who neither rejoices in good fortune nor grieves when things go wrong, who judges matters as neither good nor evil, who is devoted only to me, such a one is dear to me. He who treats friend and foe alike, who is even-minded, whether receiving honor or discipline, who calmly, without attachment, accepts warm and cold, pleasure and pain, who is the same under praise or censure, who is inwardly tranquil and contented, who is attached to no abode, and is ever calm and devout, such a one is dear to me. But those who, filled with devotion, pursue the deathless Dharma I have described, ever engrossed in me, are above all dear to me.
Well, from time to time we have our firsts, and this is the first for me. I don't think I've ever given satsang with jet lag. We've got so many people in the audience with jet lag as well. So if all of us are kind of like this, then we'll understand what's going on. Those of you that don't have jet lag, you are our scaffolding. You can keep us upright. It is a real joy to be here. There's no question about it. We had a great time by the ocean for a couple of years, and then we got this surprise. I came home from a class in the evening, and Roma said, "I need to talk." And I don't hear that often from her in that way, and instantly I had the image, "Pack your bags." And, we had been asked by Swami to come back to India, and it was such a surprise. Of course, we said yes, and we thought we could get back here in 6 weeks. No way, there was too much to do. But we got back in 3 months. That was pretty good. So many things. Well, one of the lessons that I learned during this 3 month, it was truly a rampage, moving out of the house, and turning the center over to friends, Los Angeles and South Bay and all that. I was telling Jaya, I said at one point, early on, maybe the first couple of days of all this activity, I realized that it was just too much. And I thought, well, it's just too bad for you that it's too much, because it's just what you have to do. And I thought, well, that's just fine, but I could use some help here. And so I thought, well, the guru can help, because he's omnipresent and he can do a lot of things at once. He's the grand multitasker. And so I thought, well, you need to give me a hand here. What do you think? And so I got this very helpful thought that I should keep the vision of being on the plane heading to India, and then all of the other details should be thought of just as running errands for the guru on a daily basis. And prior to that thought that came, it wasn't going so well. I was pretty inefficient, and I pack a box and then forget it and go out and sweep and then make a phone call and remember the box an hour later. It wasn't, and I'm a Virgo. I kind of like to, stay on track with these things. But after giving it all over, I found that it was going smoothly. And it didn't take 3 years to get here, only 3 months. So that was good. Well, along with this beautiful reading of the Gita, I was thinking that it's a very, very important spiritual practice to see ourselves and others already there. Just as it was so helpful for me to just think that Roma and I are on the plane, it's liftoff, and look at each other and say, okay, it's happening. We are flying to India. So we too, Master has a poem, whispers about flying home. We too are flying home. We do ourselves a great, great good to keep in mind that we are not only already there, because it's impossible not to be there, we're already in God. The loose end, of course, is we don't know that. And that's the cosmic joke. I think God thinks it's funnier than we do half the time. But we should really make a spiritual practice, and we're doing this, but all the more, where we, as we spend time with one another and all, we should think, this person before me, whoever it might be, fellow devotee, someone that we might meet on the street, store clerks, this person will have the experience of freedom. And then from there, respect that on a deep level. This is a person that will be free. It may be moments from now, it may be months or years, incarnations. That's in God's hands. The good news is that when we finally reach that point of freedom, there's not going to be any gripes. You won't think, well, gee, Jamal got free or 2 incarnations before I did. No fair. Because I was trying much harder than he. How did that happen? There won't be any of that. When we're free, we'll look back, and whether we have spent days and nights of Brahma, huge, enormous, unfathomable cycles of time, or we got home fairly quickly. It doesn't matter at all. Because right now, we are experiencing a bit of reality. Because we're in this dream separation. But when we're free, we will have a full-blown experience of reality where time and space are an illusion. There's not going to be this thought that, God has really done us a bad turn by thrusting us out and all this craziness, and finally we get back huffing and puffing. It won't be that. When we are free in God, we'll look back and say, that was a good trek. That was a very good trek. We saw many sights, made many friends. And now we're back, and we are back for eternity. And so for us to stay in the spine, as the yogis say, live more in the spine, to stay in touch with our own souls, the soul within, the soul in everyone, the spirit. We need to stay in reality. This dream is not reality, so why do we give it so much energy in terms of worrying about this and fretting about that? When we do that, we're getting fooled, we're off our center, and we're not having a great time. That's an understatement. But if we will be very stubborn, and Yogananda did say, and this is great news for us, he attracts stubborn people. But we want to be stubborn in the positive sense, not in the negative sense. When we fall and trip over our own feet and so forth, we must keep in mind that the Maya is very potent, very, very strong. And so naturally, we're going to say things that are idiotic, and we're going to do things that are twice as idiotic, and all these things. But that's just part of the good show that's going on. We don't want to compound that mistake by thinking that this is us, that we are that mood, and we are those silly thoughts. Every time we're out of our center, then we must quickly get back. That's it. That's the only chore we've been given. And the sooner we can realize that, the sooner we'll find that truly we've got a great shortcut. And the great shortcut is, I want to be in God all the time. I don't want to waste my time any longer. And demand of God, and demand of the gurus, that they remind us of that, like Senor Perón, who was the center leader of Mexico City. Apparently, muffed up a number of incarnations and God, who knows what he was doing, but we can all relate. And so when he got back onto the path, and Yogananda had told him that he had strayed, then he was concerned that he didn't want to do that again. And Yogananda said, no, you will not stray any longer. And so Señor Coron was very wise. And when he would come in from Mexico City from time to time to see Yogananda in Los Angeles, he was quick to remind Yogananda, remember your promise, because Yogananda had promised him, that he wouldn't allow him to stray any longer. But that wasn't good enough the next visit. Now remember your promise. You told me I wouldn't be straying. Well, that's the persistence that God loves. That we pay no attention to the foibles and all the silly things that we do and others do. We remind God again and again and again. You promised me when I went out on this picnic that you'd get me back. So let's kind of move forward with that promise. And if you don't mind, jolty, quick, get this thing moving. And that's, of course, what Kriya Yoga is all about, the airplane route to God. That's what loving God is all about. That's the shortcut. And so it is a joy to be here. We're shaking our heads, especially as we see Dora from the South Bay meeting. Where am I? South Bay, those of you who don't know, is west of Los Angeles by the ocean. And it was, again, a grand 2 years. My goodness. It was like 2 years that we were gone in many ways. Happy we see old friends here out in the crowds. Gosh, time really is an illusion. It really is. When we were leaving, because it's hard to leave, we have a job, and the job takes us to another locale, and on and on and on. We all have experienced this in so many different ways. And so I was saying to a friend there in Southern California, and I said, you know something? You know what I realized, and this really sweetens the experience, otherwise it can be painful, these changes that come in life. I said, all that is really happening as Ananda grows. Remember the autobiography of the yogi, the very ending is, Lord, thou hast given this monk a large family. And so I said, really what's happening is that every time we make these moves and make these changes, our heart is getting bigger and bigger and bigger, because we're not going to allow anybody to escape. Just because we're going from Los Angeles to India, or from India to New York, or whatever, all of those friends we've made, pile in, guys, into the heart. You can't escape now. And so the heart gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And whether it's our karma to travel or not, we can experience this by keeping our hearts open and reminding ourselves to just stay in reality, stay inspired, do all that we can to invite, as the yogis love to say, what comes in itself, let it come. Open the heart, keep the heart open to allow God to flow as He wants to flow through all of us in a blissful way, in a loving way. So I turn Satsang over to Roma, who wants to share some thoughts too. Thank you all in these last 2 years, and we work very for keeping up the good work. It really is apparent. The place is growing by leaps and bounds, and it's a great joy to see that and experience Mother India again. God bless you.
I'll just say a few words, so don't worry. The reading is beautiful, and there's a letter that Yogananda wrote to his disciples. And he was about ready to leave his body when he wrote this letter, and he was trying to reassure them that when he was gone, that they would be taken care of, that they would be protected, that he would never leave them. And in the letter he said, we all have to have the test of our karma. We can't avoid it. We cannot avoid the test of our karma. We've created it, And we have to accept the fact that these things are going to come into our lives. But then he goes on in the letter and he said, you must never lose courage. Never lose courage. I will never give up my job about you. I will never give up my job about you. That's the promise of the Guru. That's the promise of God. If we give our lives to God wholeheartedly, 100%, every thought, every feeling, every emotion, every intention, everything, God will be there for us. And we need to realize that on a very deep level. And how can we realize that on a deep level? Sometimes God seems so far away, and our life and karma is so intense, and there's no way out, and we get hurt, and our heart is broken, and things just don't work out, and we fail at this, and we're ill, and all of the things that happen, our families, our suffering, we can do nothing about it. The loneliness, all of the things that happen, that's the test of our karma. But all it is that we're moving down the stream into the light. All we're doing is moving. All that karma is going past us. This too shall pass. It says in the Bible, Christ says, this too shall pass. Everything passes, but God changes not. God will never leave you alone. You know, Swamiji sent out a letter a couple of months ago, and it's very beautiful stories of these two souls that had experienced a near-death experience. You've heard of these near-death experiences. And Hari was joking and said, it'd be nice just to take a vacation sometime and go to this other side and experience it all. You know, when we wake up in the morning or go to bed at night, but no, we have to be on the operating table or be in an accident or something horrible has to happen. Then we leave our bodies. But in this particular story, it was so inspiring to me. And Swamiji too, he said it was just so compelling for him. But there was this man, and he was an atheist. He didn't believe in God, and all his life he had rejected God. And he had talked against God. And if anybody brought God up, he would dispute that and make fun of him. And his whole life, he just did want nothing to do with God. And so then he was ill, and he was on the operating table. And he left his body. He left his body. For about a half an hour, he experienced this other realm. And he felt himself going down, being pulled down by a satanic force. He didn't soar into the light, he didn't go through the tunnel, he didn't experience cosmic consciousness. He felt himself being pulled down. And he started getting very frightened and thinking he had no control over the situation. Down and down he went. And it was like he couldn't break free from those forces. So all of a sudden, he thought, well, what am I going to do now? And there was a thought that came into his mind. A thought, pray. Just one word, pray. And then he thought, I don't know how to pray. I've never prayed. But he remembered when he was a little boy that he had gone to school and he had said these prayers and he prayed to Christ. And so he said this prayer that he had learned as a little schoolboy, and he mentioned the word Christ. And at that moment, Christ appeared to him in this being of light that he identified as Christ. But there was Christ in the moment that he thought and said Christ's name. There he was. And Christ immediately pulled him, reached down with his hand, and pulled him out of this darkness, this pulling away from the light. Pulled him, and then he held him to his chest. He just held this man to his chest. And the man said that he felt complete love, complete peace, complete attunement with this being of light we identified as Christ. It changed his life forever. And he realized who he really was in that moment. And that's the way it is for all of us. He changed his life so that he went about the rest of his life sharing this story and sharing with people that yes, there is a God. I've experienced it. I know it. And once you've experienced that love, once you've experienced God in any way that's dear to your heart, no one can tell you that's not true. No one can take that experience away from you. That's the true experience, and that's what realization of God is. Realization of the self. Realizing that you are in fact that which you crave. You are that light. And so Yogananda said, if you think me near, I will be near. Very important teaching. We should say that to ourselves over and over again. If you think me near, I will be near. And then when we think of God and we think of the light and we think of love, right there, when we need Him the most, through all of the karma, He is near. He is with us. He is never going to give up His job about us until we're free. And then we can come back and help others. Before we did the satsang, a dear friend said, why don't we talk about spiritual community? Why don't we talk about the power of community? And I thought, wow, let's do it. And I started to think about how to talk about spiritual community. It just wasn't coming and just wasn't coming. And then this story came to me about this man. And I thought, that's what spiritual community is. The respect and the love and the caring that we give for each one of us for our spiritual life. That's what spiritual community is. Sure, you could have a solar generator and an organic garden and the perfect economic system and everybody's, the right school. But what is a spiritual community? A community of souls that are supported 100% for each individual spiritual life. That's a spiritual community. And when each person is feeling God on whatever level that they can, they share that. And then when you share that, it's beautiful light. It's like shaking hands across the world. You share the love. That's what a spiritual community is. It's not a place. It's not a gathering of people. It's a communion of souls. And so when I look at this group here, think of it. We have all these pilgrims from America who are seeking God together. 3 weeks of seeking God together, going to the holy places of India. That's inspiring. Many people don't pull away. They won't let the world. They let the world not let them do what their soul wants them to do. And you have all decided to spend 3 weeks seeking God together. That's spiritual community. That's the beauty of sharing the spiritual life. We have people from Pune. We have people from London. We have people from Bangalore. We have people from all over the world here right now. Italy. That's spiritual community. We all live in separate places. Many people will never live in a spiritual community, but we can have spiritual community by deep meditation and by praying for one another. Keeping the light. This is a time in our planet evolution that we really need to support one another in our spiritual life because it's important. And that magnetism will grow and get stronger and stronger. And the light will become so bright, the darkness will disappear as if it had never been. The darkness, Ramakrishna said, darkness glorifies the light. And once you're in the light, all of the karma, all of the distress, all of the sadness goes. And you're able to share the little bit that you have. Will grow and grow and grow, and all over this world will be filled with the love of God. And you will touch souls right where God puts you. Right in the moment, right where God puts you. If you think me near, I will be near. Let's remember that. And I really encourage the pilgrims to pray for one another during this time because everybody's seeking God. And it can be a very blessed time. Krishnadas and Mantradevi and Dai and Keshava, they're wonderful souls to be able to guide you through the experience. But our prayer for you is that you go very deep and that you experience what you hope to experience. So God bless you all, and thank you for having us back. We are just very happy.